American group split into two groups because we were large, based on interest. So our group dealt with violence against women, and the other group was about hunger. So the first thing that we talked about was an issue, a story particularly that happened in Topeka, Kansas last October, which happens to be the month where we look at violence against women and its prevention. And the city council in Topeka, Kansas voted to decriminalize domestic violence because of budget cuts. So the district attorney had refused to try domestic violence cases and other misdemeanors because he had budget cuts. And so all of a sudden the city found themselves, because domestic violence was illegal according to their law, also needing to try those cases. And they decided they couldn't afford to, so they voted 7-3 in favor of decriminalizing domestic violence. And part of they were hoping that then the county would be forced to deal with it, but the county had already said that they wouldn't. So just the precedent that sets is so deeply alarming, especially in a climate of financial fear in our country. And so we want to make sure that does not become a standard that other cities think is okay. So we talked about a lot of different things, and really what strategies can we use to combat violence against women. So one thing that we talked about was taking action now with certain issues. So to look and see who, because that happened in October, surely people must be organizing around it. So who is currently organizing to really make a stand, and who can we stand with our sisters in Kansas against this kind of a ruling, and say we may be from different states, but we are with you on this, and we are all against domestic violence. So making a stand in that case. Also, there's the Violence Against Women Act, which is coming up for re-ratification, and so that is a really important issue. It provides funding for a lot of violence prevention and shelters and a lot of different things that is really, really critically important. And if it doesn't get passed and doesn't get the appropriate funding, it could have disastrous consequences. So advocate, and that apparently is in the Senate now, or it's definitely in the committee at the moment. So that's something that we can do now. Then looking at how can we advocate locally. So looking at some different best practices models. So where are there really good models that are going on for how to deal with domestic violence? And one was in New York, where 2 years ago they passed some new laws and some funding behind those laws to create safe houses. And when they're going out, specifically having to do with prostitution with girls and young women, to take those girls to a safe house and prosecute the pimps who are abusing those girls, rather than the other way around, which is the way it's normally been done in prosecuting the people who have been victimized. Also taking women on every domestic violence call that the police get, to offer the women the chance to actually go with the police person to escort them to a shelter a safe house where they can be safe. So there were some other best practices from Michigan and some other places that were discussed. So looking at when we go to advocate locally, to bring with us these ideas of what has worked other places, because that's really powerful in advocacy and in convincing people, specifically in the government and other institutions, to support these things.